This is decidedly a strange time to be doing and deciding to record a video, considering it is going to be the sun sets in about 15 minutes. But I feel inspired to do it, and why not go ahead and get it done? Yesterday's video seemed to be so important and so relevant, and as I look to this Pisces full moon that occurs on Tuesday, September the 1st, 10:23 p.m. I think, 10:23 p.m. on Tuesday, September the 1st, Pacific time, so it'll be September the 2nd for a number of people. Yeah, I can't help but try and bring everything together as best I can. It's hard to believe that relationships are not going to be on top of our mind collectively for a lot of people. If this doesn't resonate for you, listen to it for another 4 or 5 minutes, and if it still doesn't resonate for you, it may not be for you. Everything depends. Everything depends on where the sign of Pisces falls in your chart, what house it occupies, and what that house stands for. So depending on the house that it's occurring in, some of this is going to resonate more clearly, and some of it is going to require appropriate and knowledgeable interpretation and interpolation. A lunation is not just about where the moon and the sun are at a particular time. At a time of a new moon, they're together in the same sign. At the time of the full moon, they are opposite each other. This time the sun is in Virgo and the moon is in Pisces. So we have a full moon in Pisces. But a lunation also stamps or absorbs or illuminates all the other transits that are occurring at that time. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of what I said in yesterday's video. I'll put a link to it at the end of this one so you can catch it. A new moon bears the imprint of key transits that occur at the time of the new moon and carries that forward, carries that energy forward over the next 28 days. And a full moon illuminates everything that is going on. And just before we got to this full moon, of course, earlier today, we had Venus opposing Pluto and Mercury opposing Neptune. And as I said, with the Mercury opposite Neptune energy, we've been feeling this Pisces full moon for a while now, unusually long, because typically you'll feel a full moon around now. You'll start to see it build intensity for about 72 hours. But because this opposition between Mercury in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces has been building for about 4 or 5 days, we've been feeling this energy for a little while. And Venus and Mars, both significators of relationships, significant others, spouses, lovers, bosses, friends, people we are intimate with or intimately involved with, even financially. So even if someone doesn't fall in the friend category or lover category, but are somehow contracted to us, or claim they're contracted to us, or feel they're contracted to us. And I say feel and claim with intent, because with a planet like Neptune involved, and Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and Neptune is strong in Pisces, it's currently transiting Pisces, it's very likely that there's some element of loss, but more to the point, there's some element of murkiness. This could be deception, this could be theft, this could be gaslighting, this could be lying, this could be stealing, this could be false pretenses, this could be deceiving ourselves. So if you're not being deceived by someone, are you deceiving yourself in your understanding of a situation? Are you not fully seeing what your intuition is trying to flag to you and tell you? And intuition plays an interesting role here, because the most significant transit that this full moon makes is a sextile to Uranus. Now, Neptune is often linked with intuition, but I find that that's the wrong. Intuition is not what is in Neptune's domain. The muses are not what create intuition. Inspiration is not intuition. It's Uranus that gives you the epiphany, that gives you the clarity, that gives you the whisper, that blows your mind, that gives you the quantum leap of understanding of a particular situation. So it's Uranus. And, you know, sextiles are very trendy in modern Western astrology. And, you know, whenever someone brings it up to me in a session, I always say, well, how was it? Did you feel the sextile? And of course, nobody feels a sextile. But the reason why, when it comes to full moons, it's important is that even though the moon is sextile Uranus, and that's a weak transit as far as I'm concerned, the sun trines it, and that's not a weak transit. So your soul and Uranus, the planet of intuition, which is retrograde, but are connected here. And somewhere this dialogue between the sun in Virgo that is ruled by Mercury, which is in Virgo, data, information, and communication, and our mind trying to grapple with things and trying to push to create its own reality and push for certain outcomes and manage our 24-hours a day to manage, organize, care for ourselves, care for others, dominate reality, dominate life forces, dominate our enemies, make things happen. Are intimately involved with this kind of tussle that is going on right now, where it's as if our intuition is flagging something that is likely to be relationship oriented and or financial oriented, and we can't quite let it go, but we can't quite make sense of it, and we may be in a certain amount of denial around it. And it's this question of what is intuition flat, and can we allow this full moon in about 48 hours time to just reveal it, clarify it. Now, full moons, as I've told you, can create meltdowns, can create culminations, can create resignations and offers, and the pot boils over, and emotional meltdowns, and sometimes visibility pushes people into visibility. It's a spotlight. And whatever it's creating emotionally really does have to be looked at. And our emotional compass is really important right now because it's linked to the sun, our soul, unqualified, subconscious, cannot be erased illumination. The moon, reflected light, a reflection of what is going on, linking up with Uranus, the planet of clarity and intuition. At a time when Mercury is both strong by virtue of being in its own sign and is trying to gather information and data and manage and control things as best it can through communication and trying to make things happen, but it's still weak because it's not entirely visible. It's gathering speed, it's moving away from the sun, but it's not empowered completely yet. It can't really make sense of things. And so relying on the full moon and this intuition, emotional truth, that is where the answer is going to come from. And the answer may not be what you think it is, but at the very least, the answer is going to be do I want to stay in this or do I not want to stay in this? I mean, that's a very weird way of putting it, or does somebody else want to stay in it, or does somebody else not want to stay in it? Or, our mind might be trying to make sense of various things right now. Well, okay, so headed to this full moon, as the moon grows, we've got Mercury opposite Neptune, trying to get some clarity, trying to stop loss, trying to get some clarity around loss, trying to both extraordinarily strong planets on a certain level. Mercury is still weakened by the fact that it's not visible and it's close to the sun, but it's still about 13, 14 degrees away from the sun, so let's not discount that. Neptune powerful in Pisces, creating loss wherever it is, spiritual loss, exalted loss, Sufi loss, something we're supposed to somehow take some sort of masochistic pleasure in, according to Neptune, as we search for the divine or find it or get drunk on it. Very Neptunian feelings. And Mercury, kind of mercurially trying to stop it. The moon comes into Pisces, not really that close to Neptune, but, tries to create a bit of a timeout. It's a little like a pause. It's like everybody quiet down. I'm gonna be full tonight. And the question is, what is that as the moon becomes fuller and says, everybody, all of you, trining each other and squaring each other and opposing each other, calm down. I am going to be full tonight. And what does that full moon really highlight and reflect and put the limelight on and tell you? As it makes, as the sun and the moon, as your soul and your incarnated humanness, trying to make sense of what is going on. And the truth may not be necessarily quite as complicated or quite as conniving or quite as deceiving as your mind may be trying to make something out to be. But the bottom line, ultimately, in terms of what your intuition may be flagging is this right or is it not? And by right, I mean, talking about intuition and feeling, does it feel right? Is it too labored? Or is it not? If you haven't gotten clarity yet, are you going to get clarity, or are you going to keep trying to pretend like something is not there? Now, right after the full moon, I said it's about relationships, right after the full moon, Venus opposes Saturn, so the planet of relationships and money gets its reality check from the reality check planet, the consequence planet. That's on September the 2nd, September the 3rd for some people. And on September the 4th, Venus squares Mars. If ever there was relationship tension and a tussle between the masculine, desiring part of ourselves and the feminine, passive, accepting side of ourselves, you can't make this up. Venus opposes Pluto going into this full moon. Then after the full moon, she opposes Saturn. And then she squares with Mars. Our relationships are being put to the test. At the same time, Mercury has just opposed Neptune, and we have a full moon in Pisces that sextiles Uranus. And interestingly, Mercury in Virgo is also supporting, and this is really interesting, data, information, transactions, communication, cognition, is supporting the planets in Capricorn. On tomorrow, actually, the day before the full moon, Mercury trines Pluto. And on September the 3rd, Mercury trines Saturn. So you have Venus, the planet of relationships, opposing Pluto, death and transformation, opposing Saturn, reality, consequence, discipline, do the right thing, stick to the straight and narrow. And information somehow supports the harsher energies. Data. Now, data supporting harsher energies is helpful, but I can't imagine it's necessarily always going to feel all that good. So what are you ignoring? Do you know the truth already in your heart of hearts? Should you stay or should you go? Is there something here that has to be fought for? Are there boundaries that have to be placed, linked up to these energies that are trying to be washed out away? Venus is in Cancer since the middle of 2018. What is this Pisces full moon trying to tell you? And with the sign of Pisces and Virgo, it's very much on the axis of Virgo, control, and Pisces, letting go. You have to access Virgo energy in your chart, or you would just be sitting in trash, not bathing and staring into space and smoking out and listening to the music of the spheres. You would do nothing. You would just turn into a puddle. At the same time, you have to access Pisces energy in your chart, or you would just turn into a control freak, constantly trying to manage and dominate and get everybody to do everything you want them to do to fit your agenda all the time. So we are very much on that polarity of what do I manage and control? What do I let go of? A lot of this plays out on where Virgo is in your chart and where Pisces is in your chart. Okay? So if we're talking about Virgo and Pisces on a financial angle, some aspect of what is going on may be financial. If it's relationships, if it's marriage, I'm thinking about various things. If it's home and career, that's where it's playing out. Now, Venus is in Cancer, a different part of the chart. Saturn and Pluto are in Capricorn, a different part of the chart. It's a question of how are all these energies working together and what is this lunation trying to do? And for me, as I look at the chart, somewhere, something is trying to become clearer through this murkiness and point you to some sort of truth. And there's an overall question of what you try and manage and control and execute on, and what you let go of, and what you surrender. But relationship and financial, relationship and financial truths abound right now. Energies work together, energies stab each other in the back, energies create a certain amount of tension, etc. You know, this full moon is ruled by Neptune and Pisces. As I mentioned yesterday, crisis 2015, 2016, something has to be let go of, something has to be released, served its purpose. Nothing and nobody's yours. And then Jupiter in Capricorn. Very slow, very stationary, getting ready to start moving ahead, go direct in the middle of September. Compromised. A planet that's getting ready to end things and make new beginnings wherever Capricorn is between September, the middle of September, and the end of the year. Fun times. If I could leave you with some sort of a summary or one question, I would say chances are that the fear and the worry, very Virgoic tendencies, very Mercurial tendencies, are trying to point you to something. And the truth in terms of deception, whether you're deceiving yourself or others, may be murkier, may have consequences that are more intense, that are quite intense, and your fears may be pointing you to something there. I don't know your individual situation. At the same time, there is something, it's like, you know how you raise a hand when you want to speak? It's like your truth and intuition are raising a hand. There's something you already know that is true. And while all the drama around the situation, whatever's being said, whatever's being argued, whatever's being discussed, whatever's being ignored, whatever is being fought over, whatever is being suspected, may or may not be true. But there's one thing out of all of this that carries, that is the truth, and that is, does this feel good? Does this, does this feel right? Or does it not? And I suspect somewhere your heart knows the answer. And somewhere in the middle of all of these planetary supports and stabbing in the backs and the data that is supporting the planet of death and transformation in reality while the planet of relationships opposes it, somewhere you know the truth. And with this Pisces full moon, just at least just take the time over the next 48 hours, take a little bit of time every day to just sit there and say, I know that there are things I'm going to try and manage and control, and certain things that I'm going to try and stop, and certain things I'm going to try and do, and certain things I'm going to try and prevent, and certain things I'm still going to think about, and certain things, Virgo. But at the same time, at least acknowledge the possibility that there's something you already know, and that you're going to have to strike a balance because you're going to want to live with yourself and make sure you make efforts in certain directions and try to get something somewhere, and it might work. We still have a new moon in Virgo that's coming up, fantastic new moon, coming up on September 17th. Again, discernment, data, information. It's the season of practicality. It's the season of rolling up our sleeves and making things happen. But right now, for some reason, over the past week and over the next 72 hours, there's a need to be able to take a little bit of time and at least acknowledge what your intuition is trying to tell you, and what on some level you already know that is true. And that try as you might to manage and control everything around, there's still a fundamental question that's already there. Whether it's your relationship with your employer, your employment, your job, yourself, somebody else. Does it feel right? Or does it not? All right. If you found this video useful, feel free to share it, tell your friends about it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button so you're notified whenever I do a video next. Hey, you can still see me. I can still see the sky. It has light in it. And my email address is in the description area, so you can email me to inquire about rates for readings, or I also create easy-to-read versions of charts where I tell you which sign is in which house, what this house stands for. You need to know your birth time for that. Do not send me any personal details until you write to me and inquire about rates. Only send me your personal details like your birth date and your birth time and birth location once you are clear about my rates and you know if you want to avail of my services or not. I don't want your personal information floating around the information highway. All right, we are going to be moving forward and looking at Mars. Soon, Mars goes retrograde on September the 9th, and it's already squared. Really, the most important set of transits in the second half of this year are Mars squaring Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, and we've already had one set of squares, and boy, have we felt them. So my next few videos are really going to be talking about Mars going retrograde and those particular squares. But in the meantime, as uncomfortable as it might be, because the polarity between us having control over our lives and dominion over our time and how we fill it and how we make a reality happen and achieve things and make things happen, and how on a certain level we don't. While that tussle is playing out, make sure you give yourself a little bit of time to just sit with whatever it is that you feel like somewhere, whether you're accepting it or denying it or it's being flagged, what your intuition is trying to tell you. Alrighty then. More to follow.